Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, I think this is probably everybody. We got more people on Zoom than we have in the room, I think. All right.
For the number of people that you have on distribution is pretty poor showing.
Well, for this group, I know there's some people who just want to be on the email list, but who don't come, so that's okay. We've got our regulars, right? Okay, so happy Friday, everyone. I just wanted to start by actually with a little apology. I didn't do all the homework I was supposed to do between our last meeting and today. I didn't get a chance to sit down and talk with Doug. Chuck, I know this is mostly your part. I wanted to talk to him about how the HOA parcels fit into this, but I did talk to Shauna about it, and she and I want to kind of go through and find where that fits in this, and maybe it's its own little section. I know we did talk about that last time. Maybe there's just a section on HOA parcels, or not necessarily HOA, because it's not always the HOA, but the lands in the conservation subdivisions, and just mention them in here, because right, like we said before, if it becomes an actual HOA parcel, then we don't really have anything to do with it if they own it and they manage it. But as we all know, sometimes, like with the new one with Pierce Brook, it's going to be something that the town is very involved in and, you know, has the easement on it. So it would be, it would have a place in here. But, you know, that being said, when it is organized so that the town is the easement holder on one of those conservation areas within a conservation subdivision, then it would kind of fall under that section C1 where we talk about conservation easement as a method of protection. So maybe all we need is just another bullet or another mention that, you know, sometimes that the way this happens is through the creation of conservation subdivision. But I couldn't get a time to talk to Shauna this month, so we're going to do it after the holidays, and she's going to give me some suggestions to work it in. I did get a chance to talk to Doug for a minute about the overall process, and he had a good idea. Not that I don't have full confidence in our ability to draft an amazing piece of work, but he suggested that in addition to this coming from us as a group, that we may want to see if the ECB is interested in partnering on this with us, since there's so many of you on this team already, and let them take, well, the rest of them, since there's 3 of you, take a look at it and see if the ECB as a whole would be willing to recommend this to the town board as a jointly. Since, you know, for all intents and purposes, it kind of has been a joint effort. It just, you know, it'd be nice to see if the rest of the ECB members are in agreement. Doug just felt like that might, that the town board might like that, you know, if it's coming from 2 groups, not just this group. Again, nothing against this group on our own, but and I kind of agreed with him. I think that's a good idea. The ECB has always championed this stuff as well. They just don't have time, as you guys know, to do this the way this group does. Sorry, I talked a lot. So yeah, Chuck, I'm sorry I didn't spend more time on the HOA piece. I regret that I didn't have time to talk to Doug about it as much as I wanted to.
No, that's fine, Sarah. I just don't want to lose track of it because it's becoming more of an issue as we go forward.
Yeah, and I opened up my folder, and that was the one thing that I have highlighted on here that I didn't get to. So I will make sure that we find a way to insert that. But I think that sending this to the ECB, I don't know what your guys' agendas look like at ECB for the next couple of months, but sending it in January or February And then our group, we can, come up with something else to work on in the interim. And then when the ECB, if they give it their seal of approval, then at that point we can send it to the board and see what they do with it. And after the new year, we'll have a slightly new or different looking town board. So it'll be interesting to get their take on it. All right, I've talked a lot. I did send the revision to you guys last week. After I kind of moved things around, I did take what was it? I think I changed where the funding sources were in the document, and I kind of massaged that a little bit. And I know the draft I sent to you guys last week had it all with it showed all the changes. So I don't know if you kind of were able to see what I was trying to do with it, but since then, nothing's really changed. Kim had made a nice little suggestion about a little phrase to add in the first section about reminding people that open space fosters healthy lifestyles and a quality of life for residents. I did insert that in the first section, A, purpose. For those of you on the screen, I just printed some with that in it, but otherwise, the document I have in front of me is the same thing that I sent you guys last week. Why don't I pull it up on the screen? That way we can all look at it together. While I do that, did anyone have anything since I sent it last week?
So you're moving all the definitions out of this document and referring to them in the code?
Yes, so that was one of Doug's suggestions when he read it. He read it after we met. And I agree. I didn't think about it at the time, but we have done this in other edits of policies and stuff where we just refer to town code, because that way if a definition changes in the town code, we don't have to come back and change this document. It's just, it'll already be, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to share my screen.
Yeah, I agree. Less chance of conflict with
Right.
definitions.
Yeah, and then, and if we missed it by mistake, or, we forgot that something changed, then we'd be referring to the incorrect definition, or if something was removed, we'd have something that didn't agree with the code, and that would prevent that. So I did take them out, but I did leave in the list of reference materials. I do have direct links to each of them, but I may actually just leave it as a link to the page on our website where we have the list of references, because from time to time we get new ones. So I didn't do this yet, but on a similar note, I might just do that. So in case the links themselves were to change, again, same thing, then we wouldn't have to change this document. The only downside is that if I link to the page, then the person has to scroll down and find the document. But I think that's okay. How's everybody feeling on the overall layout? Does it make sense now that we've moved things around?
Yeah, it's much more streamlined.
I think you did a good job, Sarah, of incorporating all the changes that we've discussed over the past several months. And it reads really easy and understandably.
Good. That's probably the most important piece.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So other than working out the last piece about conservation subdivisions and, where those parcels, whether it's HOA or an easement for the town, fall in, how's everybody feeling about it overall? Do you feel like there's nothing else we can do? We should send it on? Is there anyone else we should ask to review this? I am gonna sit down with Shauna. She has read it, but again, just kind of like with Doug, she and I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and connect on it.
What's the scheme on was it Pierce Brook open space? It's the homeowners association's gonna own it, or the town's gonna own it, or what?
I just talked to Sean about that one because we were using it as an example when she and I were talking. That one, the town is going to hold an easement on it. So from what I understand, the town doesn't own that piece, but we have an easement and it's going to be open to the public for anyone to use the walking trails and stuff.
Okay.
So
There's
the
a-
town would be responsible for enforcing the easement if something, if they did something that isn't allowed.
Who's gonna mow it, trim it, and so
Oh,
on?
I don't know. That's
Chuck, do
probably
you know?
in the details.
I think it's the HOA.
There's a
I think
parking,
it's the HOA, Tom. They'll take care of the maintenance. It's just that the public will have access to the trails and be allowed to use them.
okay, because there's a parking lot immediately across from Miller Park.
Yeah,
So that must be the plan that town residents would use that to access.
Yeah, that was the intent of that. I think there's room for like 4 or 5 spaces. And
Yeah,
people can pull in there, and if they want to use the Pierce Brook trails, they can get out of their car and take a hike.
Yeah, but that was part of the discussion when it came to the town board.
yeah.
what's the scheme on going back was it East Ridge? Chuck, where we got involved with trees cutting in there? What happened on that
Well,
comment?
I think in contrast to Pierce Brook, that is not open to the public. And then the issue you're talking about, Tom, has to do with, I think the town was concerned at the time, our town fathers, that there may be tree clearing in the conservation easements. And therefore they required as part of the approval that anytime anyone wants to do any pruning, tree removal, that it has to come to the planning board for approval before that happens.
And that's the only one where it comes back to the planning board, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So that Pierce Brook is a win-win,
Seems to be.
yeah.
Okay. So how's everybody feeling, other than the couple things we talked about overall? Do we, once we get the language in there to at least incorporate the HOA and conservation subdivision easements into it, and we're happy with that, do you feel like then we'll be ready, or is there anything else you think we need to tweak or ask or have someone take a look at?
I think it reads really well. I wondered, when we met with Labella, we talked about prioritization of areas for protection.
Yeah.
And should there be some statement regarding priorities? And at first, or the second section, identifying parcels to protect, should we, explicitly state scenic view sheds, steep slopes, valuable agricultural or lands, forested areas? Or is it, I guess, implied just in the wording of the policy?
So I think it's implied that we should lean on our documents, our plans, in order for the town board to make those decisions. And one of the things Doug mentioned to me is if we narrow the policy down too much, it ties the hands of the town board, makes it harder for them. So he actually suggested that the policy should be broad and not specific, because then it allows them the decisions that we're asking them to make, to actually do it on their own. I think we've included language in here that makes it pretty clear that, we have all these documents, we've decided what kinds of land cover is important. You know, we have all the maps that identify the steep slopes, the forests, the, you know, the wetlands. So the big picture idea of what do we want to protect is already, you know, we've identified that. I know
Okay.
when we talked about all the maps, you know, we have had discussions about how we might be able to, you know, improve on them. But even without that, I think, according to Doug at least, and I have to agree, we've gotten as specific as we need to. And at this point, you know, we can present this to them to use as a procedural document, and, you know, suggestions from the ECB or the town manager or from this group can be sent to the town board for them to decide.
Yeah, and we can always reference the LaBella report,
Yep.
which did a nice job of ranking.
Well, and we
But it was-
incorporated that
Yeah,
into,
and it's
to
weighted
this.
more heavily on number of acres, but there's still might be a small parcel that we could document with
Right.
the LaBella.
And if we leave it broad, then
Yeah.
we aren't narrowing it down to one of these maps, or, you know,
Right.
so it does mean, well, and they already can make these decisions without this, but I don't know. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think we're better off just leaving it kind of open.
Okay, makes sense. There's-
Should we have a more specific contact place in the town than just the town? Because if I were a homeowner who really had, or a property owner who really had nothing to do with the town ever, and there are many people here who don't even know the town exists, how would they know where to go? I mean, do they go to the town clerk's office? Do they go to the town manager's office? Do they, the town supervisor's phone number is published? Do they call him? I don't know if that information should be more specific once, or if it's okay just the way it is.
I think unless they're brain dead, and if they're the least bit motivated, Karen, they're gonna find somebody to talk to that will forward them or direct them to somebody else that's got the right ear.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say our town organization is small enough that if you reach out, I know my personal experience was I reached out with something, and then I got pointed to the right people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
That's
think
true.
that
Almost
works.
anyone they ask, you're
Yeah.
gonna end up either talking to Doug or the town board. You know, I mean, in the end, it's their decision. I know people do reach out, like, to board members if they, you know, they reach out to the person they're most comfortable with, or Doug, or they call us at the town hall and the information finds its way. So I agree, but you know, that made me think of something else. We have this document, which is gonna, if the board wants to adopt it, it'll end up, you know, on the website with our policies and procedures. But we also, if you remember at the beginning, you know, I had made a list of like resources
Mhm.
kind of on the flip side for landowners. When we get comfortable with this and we have time to do some other things, you know, maybe we can tweak that and we can make sure that there's all kinds of contact information, be it town staff or town board. And I think on that document, I even have websites for like the local land trusts listed on it. So, I mean, that's something I kind of would like us to put out there as a resource document for landowners, which is kind of separate from this. I know if this ever makes it to the website, it does become a resource for landowners too, but you know, maybe that could be like a little side link. Hey, are you a landowner? Click this. Here's a bunch of information for you.
Are you talking almost like a little flyer? For-
Yeah, like a
I-
page or two.
Yeah, I think that would be easier for the average resident.
But still, I think you would end up with a bunch of different people depending on who they want to talk to. I mean, if they just have general questions, you know, it might be more staff, but if, you know, they really want to protect their land and they want to get people interested, you know, then it's more management or board member question.
You're not gonna have a parade of people coming in.
No.
If you get one every 6 months, we're gonna be lucky.
If we get one a year, we'll be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, this is not there's no shortage of people that someone can talk to.
Unless, the state comes up with more incentives for non-farm open spaces. And then we do get people knocking on the door when there's financial incentive involved.
So how would you get that information out to people if the state, because I noticed, in the funding sources, you did mention certain things, but there's nothing really tangible yet. So how would you get that information out to people? And, we sit here and think that everybody knows that there's a website for the town of Canandaigua, but believe me, not everybody knows there's a website for the town of Canandaigua. And also, believe me, it is a bulky website to navigate. And, this is really valuable information, especially for an aging population of property owners who might want to have an impact on future resources within their area, or they know they have, this beautiful open space. What do I do with it? How do we get that information out? That's a question.
So I think it depends on what we're talking about. So say the state, announced in January, hey, we have this new forest protection grant and here's how it's going to work. We could potentially do what we've done in the past with the farmland protection grants. We actually mailed a letter to all eligible landowners in the town who had the minimum required acres and the land cover in question, to tell them that we have this program available. Are you interested? Give us a call, write us a letter, email us, here's how. And that's how we got a pool of applicants for the last farmland protection round. So I would imagine that, if the state comes out with a program like that, for forest owners or other than ag owners, we would do that. Because as far as I know, that would still be our plan for another round of farmland protection grants. We would mail people letters again. Because, right, we just want to get right to them to let them know. As far as just giving the landowners information in general to let them know, hey, you can protect your land, whether there's a state program or not. You could consider doing something similar. If we get a flyer developed that we think is nice and informative, you could develop a list of landowners based on some criteria that this group or the ECB comes up with, say, people with 5 acres or more undeveloped, land that's inside of our forest protection area or something like that. And we could just do a mailing.
And that's where I'm leading, Sarah. I believe it would be good to develop a simple brochure that we do have this policy. This policy is available. You can put it in the monthly newsletter that you print out, and it gets to some residents. Some of the programs, though, in reading through what you sent previously, there's the forest protection program and there's the water protection program. I never knew there was a water protection program until Kevin Mulvaney mentioned it to me. And I'm wondering how many residents know about state efforts to support those types of properties. And so that's why I say that I think a brochure would be valuable, and it would be of equal value to mention some of the state programs, whether they're still active or not, because eventually they're going to have to be activated again because of the state of things in the state.
Yeah, and that's the hard part too, right? We don't always know. So
Right.
if they're gonna change the programs or what, but I think you're right, you know, you can mention something and give them the links and the resources, you know, to see if it's something, but, you know, maybe that's our next task, you know, if, when we finish this, we can work on that as a next task, and I can see about a budget for mailing. I think it's reasonable. I mean, I would like to do it.
And
Separate from the policy, you know, mailing the, you know, the flyer, the brochure, saying here's resources for you. Some of them are not gonna be with the town, some of them might be through contacting a land trust or what have you, but, yeah, I think that would be worthwhile. Cause you're right, not everybody knows that they have options. Unless someone were to come knock on their door, not everybody knows that you can kind of go do some of this on your own.
and that's pretty much a problem across the board with things that municipalities do. They create programs such as this, but it's important communication, and marketing. It's so important to get that word out to the average resident. Not all residents are even going to look at something, but in this town, there are more residents that are interested in this type of thing than you would find in some other towns. And I believe that we fall short in communication. You've been a real leader in that with the newsletter that we have, and with emails that go out. I know you have a significant email list, and it's time to use that with the things that we're doing as groups like this, and letting people know that you know, this is right at your feet. This piece of property off of Route 21 that's absolutely gorgeous. Did you know about it, or do you know what you can do to save some of these really valuable pieces of space and things like that? I'm sorry, I go on and on.
No, you just reminded me, you know, for information, you know, when we're sending out information about things that exist, you know, we're not creating anything new, like what we're talking about with the brochure, just informing the public about things they can do. Mailing it out to the people who are going to be most interested is probably the best way to do it, but we can throw that kind of stuff on MailChimp and Facebook too. Because even if they don't own land, they might have a neighbor who does, or, you know, just other ways to inform them.
Were you around when we had a clone of this group 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
With Ryan was
Mhm.
involved, and we did send a mailing to owners of more than 20 acres or 50 acres or something.
Surveyor, right? Or
Well, we actually sent them information and invited them to a meeting, and we had the land trust there. I forget how many Chris identified, but you know, you're able to do a sort
Mhm.
and number of acres, I think.
That's what I was saying, is
Whatever
we
the
can-
threshold was.
we have the ability to sort and categorize all
Yeah.
the parcels in the town based on whatever criteria we pick. So obviously, you know, you're not going to mail it to every landowner in the town, but we can narrow it down to the ones that it makes sense and send it out. We just have to have the it to send. We need to get that part sorted out first.
I think the assessor can, you know, they can put in certain criteria and give
Yeah, they can do it
give
too.
you a list, yeah. That was the other Chris.
Yes,
One of the 3 Chris's.
I know. Now we just have one. Okay. So as far as the policy, I will email you when I have a section in there for the conservation subdivision pieces with HOA and easements and stuff. I'm gonna try and meet with Shauna. We might be able to do it next week, but it may have to happen in January. So I'll send you guys that. For the January meeting.
Sarah, one other thing on the policy. I know
Yeah.
you said early on that having this policy in place will help us in grant applications, scoring on grant applications?
It
Is
could,
what
yeah.
is what we've provided, does that check all the boxes? Is what's to be included in a town policy regarding open space?
Well, the boxes change with every grant application. So
I
that
guess
part,
whatever it is currently, yeah.
yeah, so, but, I mean, for example, with the farmland protection grants, there used to be a question that asked about code language or policies that the town had for maintaining easements and stuff. And we've never had anything before that talked about that. So I would think that if the town board wanted to adopt this document, at that point, we could actually say, yes, we have an established policy for this. But I don't, you know, they change their questions every year, so I don't know if they're going to continue to ask that. I don't know if other grant applications would and exactly how they might ask it. But I think just the fact that we have an adopted document that talks about how the town board can protect land will help. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have a definitive answer. I just know that having it's better than not having it. And I think, you know, this document's not, 20 pages long, but we reference and mention in the document all of our other plans. So in a way, it's kind of including them in the policy where
Yeah,
maybe
sort of
that
the
takes them
umbrella.
up a level, they're a planning document, but if they're mentioned in the policy, they become kind of part of it.
Mhm. Okay, just want to make sure we said the right things in terms of future applications for grants. It's good.
Maybe I'll
Oh.
browse through some of the ones I know about and see if they have, there aren't really any open right now, but I can maybe see if I can find something that's more specific.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a good question.
Sarah, how do we leave it with Barbara regarding the maps themselves? Was there something, or maybe you're going to get into that? I'm jumping the gun here.
No, it's okay. So I was talking with Doug about it. We can definitely, like, if there's a map we need to update, we can go forward with that. But creating new maps that kind of alter the adopted plans that we already have takes more than just this group. So,
I think we were looking at more maybe consolidation.
right. So he
Talk about-
said we'd have to kind of go about that differently, maybe involving, again, the ECB in that. But for now, if we want to update the existing maps, that should be fine. Like what we talked about, some of the simple stuff, like making sure that the map that talks about the protected land, the one here behind me, has all of the farmland parcels on it, because it doesn't right now. We can do that, but we shouldn't really be talking about creating a new, like, replacement map for the lands of conservation value, the blue and green one we look at all the time, because that's an adopted document. Like, so we can't just make a new one and say, oh, we're going to use this one instead. So that might be a little bit more involved, maybe take a little bit more time. So for now, I kind of, we'll just hold on to that thought for a little bit.
It'll give us something to do next year, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, you gave out hard copies of the maps. Where can I access the digital versions of those?
So let's see. So for most of them, they fall under the committees that deal with them. So like the Ag Committee has the maps on their page for the farmland protection. I think on the page I created for us, I think I put most of the maps we talked about on that page.
Okay.
And I did send a link to it, but if you go to the website and just search conservation easement, it should pop up.
All right.
but I'll put a note to make sure that I did that. I think I did. We are also, there's a long-term project that Kim has been helping me with, or actually Kim's been doing all by herself, to try and have a spot on our website where we can access all of the maps. But because it's not, come down from above kind of a job, it's not been a priority. So it's something that we're working on here and there. But eventually, I feel like it, and a lot of people I know, we all agree, it would be nice to have all the town maps accessible on one page. But yeah, it's just kind of a long-term project that we work on when there's time. I'll let you know when we
We've
have it.
got
But
no
there
shortage
are-
of maps.
There are many maps available. They just aren't in one place. They're on the pages that go with them. There's a page about the natural resources inventory. There's a few maps on there. And again, the Ag Committee has a few maps on their page. And of course, all the maps are in the plans they belong to. You just have to scroll through them, which is time consuming, but they're all there. But yeah, check the webpage I made for our group. Most of the ones I printed should be there, and if they're not, I'll make sure they are. And I've got a note to go check, because I feel like when I did it, I uploaded them, but I haven't visited that page in a while, so I don't remember. Question about meetings. Do we want to continue to meet once a month? I know some groups take a break in the winter. Do you want to take a break? I'm happy to continue to meet monthly, but I don't want to just keep plowing forward if people want to press pause. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I'm good with going forward.
I think that now that we have a viable plan, you're going to send this to the ECB, Sarah, next?
Yes, I want to get the HOA stuff in there, but I think it fits best under the part where we talk about conservation easements, as long as that's what it is. And so I think I know where we'll put it, and I'll email it to you guys. But yes, that's the thought. Once we get that inserted, we'll share it with the ECB, and they will meet again in early January and February. So depending on your guys' agenda at the ECB, I'm not sure when you'll get it, but yeah.
So then your plan would be that this might go to the town board in March or April?
Yeah. I know,
And
snail's pace.
so one thing is I think we need to look at the HOA information, but
Yeah.
I also think that we should plan ahead for developing some sort of mass I hate that word mass, a communication plan to get this out to the people who would be interested and invested in this type of plan.
Well, if everybody's still comfortable meeting once a month, I mean, while we're waiting for the ECB, we can certainly plan for our January meeting to talk about the brochure. And I can ask Doug about paying for mailings, can we do that? Where can we pay for it from? Let me just write that down so I don't forget to ask.
And have some kind of a criteria for the mailing.
Yeah, we'd have to narrow it down. We'd have to agree on what makes sense. I think, a minimum size and land cover and land cover is a little harder, but we could use the forest protection area boundaries that we came up with when the open space plan was adopted, or something like that.
Start with the ranking that Labella did.
Yeah, they have a top 10
Yeah.
or top 20, but again, that leaves out some of the smaller parcels.
Well, we could start with a target market, and the larger parcels would certainly be appropriate for something like that. And just kind of work our way into other areas. But the big thing would be the actual communication piece. And I'm willing to meet as long as I can get into the meeting, which I had difficulty this morning, but maybe I won't the next time.
Well, maybe you can email me later if you want to tell me and we can work it out. Or we can figure out why. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I got it.
Okay, well, let's plan on that for January. I'll bring that one I made and we can tweak it, simplify it, massage it around a little bit and make something short and sweet, but to the point that we can mail out. It'll probably contain, problem is with a paper mailing is that when you're wanting to give someone resources, oftentimes those resources are going to be a web page somewhere.
Right.
So, that's a little harder, but we can still make it work. But we can do a joint effort, we can send a hard copy and at the same time we can send it all the other normal ways that we do digitally. I'll talk to Doug in between now and then, and I will, because I wrote it down on my list of things to do. I won't forget about, what's appropriate to come from this group. I mean, we're just sharing information about things that are already in place. It's not necessarily talking about this policy, because of course that's not adopted.
Right.
But excuse me, programs that are already in existence or contact people and groups, I think is probably what we can share.
That's a great place to start. It's a great place to start. Yes.
All right. And then, depending on the ECB schedule, February might be looking at that. This group could potentially go to the ECB meeting, or the rest of us who aren't already going to be there. If that works for them, I can talk with Sean and Adeline about the agendas coming up and see what might work. If they'd like us there to go through this together.
As far as getting information out, as Karen suggested, I know that the Finger Lakes Land Trust sends copies of their newsletter because it's up adjacent to Jean's office. Could that be copied and made an attachment to the newsletter?
That's a great idea.
It talks about success stories in different communities and where the
You
money
mean the
comes
one
from.
they mail out or the
Yes.
one they send in the email?
The one that they mail out.
Yeah, so they send that to members.
Yeah, and there's usually some in
We get one in our office
Okay.
and then, we stick it down.
if you
in
copy
the-
that and attached it to the town newsletter,
That's not a
that's
bad idea.
that's got a lot of success stories. Unfortunately, not as many in Ontario County as in Tompkins,
Well,
but
yeah.
if people read about how different communities preserve land, or whether it's watersheds or forests or waterfront, and where the money comes from or where it's donated.
Mhm. It would just show that we're starting to be a leader in this type of thing. And, Tompkins County will just have to be jealous.
Well,
I will say that the Finger Lakes Land Trust has been a lot more active over this way in the past few years. They've done a lot down like in South Bristol recently, and down in I don't know what town it is. It's probably Gorham or something, or Rushville down on the other side of the lake. So they've been coming over here a lot more.
Bear Hill and
Yeah.
what's the name of the forest, the state forest? Anyways, they've
High
added to
Tor,
that.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
flats there in Naples, the land trust protected through the Sands boys.
Right, and they just bought a parcel next to Ontario County Park on Gannett Hill.
But this also should go to the Watershed Association too, because both forest and water-related properties have impact on the cleanliness of the lake. And I think it would be a good addition to information they send out to their members.
You mean the land trust newsletter? Or-
Not just, well, I don't know what the water is, doesn't the watershed send out newsletters on occasion or information on occasion?
The Watershed Association, yeah, they
Sure.
send,
We do.
I haven't seen a hard copy, but they do send, I'm on their email list, so they send stuff every few weeks, probably.
So I think it'd be good for them to have the information about this because it does impact them.
Yeah, they actually have an office now.
Yeah, they do.
There, they can keep their paper in the office.
Yeah. Okay,
Many ways to get the word out.
That's right.
yeah. Yeah, I see no reason why we can't start sending some information. Let me just check on how to pay for a mailing. I would imagine we can. I just have to find out what pocket I'm allowed to do it from.
Does this committee have a budget?
Not really, not our own budget that belongs to this group, but there is money for communicating. There's money for conservation projects in general. I think it's possible that some of that could be used for a mailing.
It's not big money, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how much it would cost to mail because I don't know how many pieces we would end up mailing. It depends on what the list looks like, but to mail to all the town, it ends up being like $3,000, but this would just be a fraction of that, so.
You can always just come up with a dollar amount and then decide your mailing from there.
Yeah, we could do that.
It's done, yeah, yeah.
It's not gonna be breaking the bank.
No, that's why I think it would be okay. I'll find out what we can do. And then in the fall, the ECB, you guys did your environmental fair. You know, maybe next year, this group could plan on participating in that again, if you guys do it again next year.
Yep.
With some information, like, you know, if we develop this brochure, you know, it'd be something we could hand out. I think, you know, it matches with the idea of the environmental fair. So there's other ideas too for getting information out. They had a decent turnout. I mean, it's hard to get people to show up, but if there's gonna be people there anyway, might as well share information
Yeah.
about this stuff too.
It was good. I mean, you have it on a dump day and people are going
Yes.
by. Snagged me, I came in.
Yeah.
We talked about doing a little more advertising and
Mhm.
stuff ahead of time, so.
I mean, it was put
Hopefully
together
that would be-
quickly, and I think it was a
Yeah.
success for how fast it came together.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I get excited about the communication part and brochures, so that'll be fun to work on. This is important, but it'll be nice to get this moving forward, and then we can look at some of this other stuff. All right. Well, I don't have, let's see. No, I don't have anything else for you guys. I owe you an email with the document when I insert that information in there. I don't know if it'll be next week. It might be after the new year. I'm gone the whole week between Christmas and New Year's, so if it doesn't happen next week, it'll happen in January. But how about our meeting schedule for next year? Does this time and day still work for everybody looking at next year?
Well, why aren't we doing it at 9 instead of 10?
I don't know. How about you folks on Zoom?
The 9 instead, or the 10 instead of 9 might have been me. So that I could get into my normal work office and take care of things and then be able to cut out for this, but we don't have to schedule around me personally.
Well, we want you here. This time and day works for me, obviously, but I'm open to suggestions if, you know.
9 or 10 is fine for me. Either one's fine.
Same here.
Same here.
Why don't we just keep it where it is then, unless something comes up? So in January, it would be the 20th. And that will be after the ECB meeting. So I'll let you know via email when we can get on their agenda. Whether it be January or February, because you guys are scheduled, ECB scheduled to meet on the 5th, right?
I believe so.
Or in February, the first Thursday is the 2nd.
I haven't sent out the referrals yet, but I think there's only one for the January meeting.
So maybe that would be a good one. All right, so I'll talk to people I need to talk to find a way on their agenda.
Who's chair of the ECV?
There's no chair.
Adeline's the facilitator.
Yeah.
Adeline?
Adeline, one of the town board members, is that she facilitates the meeting. The ECB does not actually have a chairperson right now.
Okay.
So, but Shauna also attends the meeting. Okay. All right, so I'll be in contact with you guys when I figure all that stuff out and let you know. And obviously the ECB meetings are always open to the public. So for those of us who are not already members, we could go if we want to, when this is on the agenda. I'll let you know when that works out. And then I'll send you the draft document with the updates on it before we send it to the ECB. And I'll just ask you guys to kind of do this through email, you know, give your okay on it through email, or if we need to change something, since we won't be meeting likely between now and then. And then for our January meeting, I will come with a draft flyer. I'll probably just have the one that I printed for all of you guys when we first started meeting in May. And maybe we can work on getting it down to a page instead of front and back, and maybe make it look a little more interesting than just text. Gotta get people excited about it.
Yeah, people think with their eyes.
Yeah, just a bunch of words. No one wants to read it. Okay, well, I won't see most of you till after the holidays. Have a wonderful Christmas, New Year's, and everything else that people celebrate. And I don't know if any of you are traveling, but if you are, travel safe, enjoy your time. And we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.